Hi everybody, my name is author Owen Wills. I just published my first full series, ERTA, the Complete Series. When I first started writing ERTA, the Complete Series, I did the normal make it hot, make it steamy. I followed the basic kind of romance idea. But actually, the longer I wrote it and the more time I had to write it, I wanted to take it to a different direction. I wanted to follow my heart. I was originally a sci-fi author, so I went back kind of to the roots of that, and you get that main feeling from the prologue of book three, and it was one of my favorite writes when I started doing this, so I wanted to read that for you um, right now. So here it is. Here we go. Prologue. Date Saturday, April 15th, 2017. Time 7:30 p.m. Location Tel Aviv at the Corp headquarters. How do you do it? How do you create such masterpiece? Do you sit on your throne and tinker till you get it just right for all eternity? Or do you create your work and let time be the only paintbrush? Layla thought, gazing at the serene beauty of the Tel Aviv coastline from the roof of her company's headquarters. As usual, I can ask, but you never respond, she thought reflectively, as she placed a slender cigarette in her mouth, waiting for her number one to light it, which he did with perfect attentiveness and care. What do you think, number one? Do you think Hashim is a tinkerer, or does he leave it to time? She asked after taking a long drag, blowing smoke from her nostrils as she spoke, having flashbacks of when she'd first met him as a teenager, covered in blood in a bombed out Beirut. For a moment, she watched him shift his weight in his full body armor, which in her opinion was still a little too bulky and thick in places where she thought the wearer should have more freedom of movement. Taking another drag, she opted to wait and allow her number one to formulate his response, knowing her conversation was going against her strict protocol, which forbade people like him from practicing or speaking about religion. Seeing his mocha brown face flush red for the merest moment, she watched as he continued to shuffle in his auto camouflage armor, feeling a pang of sadness and deep annoyance arise in her, but unable to pin down where it come from. Folding her arms over her breast, she looked down at her long white silk summer dress, with tiny blue Israel flags hand sewn around her 24-inch waistline, wondering why she picked such a hot material, knowing how much she'd sweat the moment the sun touched her fair skin. Brushing the miscellaneous thought aside, she raised her eyebrows at her bodyguard and life debt servant, really wanting him to speak his mind despite the fact that he hadn't been able to do so since his enslavement 11 years prior. You're my only master. I recognize none above you, Layla heard her number one finally respond, without even the slightest hint of insecurity in his tone. Surely you don't think I created all of this, do you? She pressed airily, gazing down 20 stories, locking onto a group of women in bikinis next to an ice cream stand, smiling at the fact that all had Lil 27 assault rifles hanging snugly on their backs via an almost hair-thin cord. I never think of it. Only your immediate safety and pleasure is of my concern, she heard her number one answer flatly, causing her to look away from the young woman who she was slowly beginning to grow jealous of. Oh, my number one, she whispered, casually gazing upon the man's marred face through smoke seeping gently from her nose, noting that he was unwilling to show any form of emotion whatsoever. My Lilith, she heard her number one ask, still maintaining a face of utter neutrality. That's all well and good, but that's not what I'm asking you. Do you think this world filled with life, do you think it was sculpted by God? And if so, do you think God made it and then let time etch the lines? Or do you think God tinkers with every single detail? She replied, taking a long drag as she nonchalantly raised her hand, summoning her number two and three from where they stood, guarding her office rooftop access doors. I'm unsure, Madam Lilith, her number one replied, sounding slightly uncomfortable. Yes, I bet you are, she whispered, gazing at her number 4, 5, and 6, who were still standing guard at her tall glass access doors, smiling when her number 6 pointed sternly at one of the many reporters crowded within, instructing her to lower her camera. Number 2, how are you today, she asked when the 2 men she'd summoned came within earshot. Well, Madam Lilith, I stand ready for your instructions, her number 2 replied crisply with a slightly puzzled look playing across his rugged face. What's wrong? She asked her number 2 as she reached out her hand towards her number 1 and said, Your rifle. Without hesitation, her number 1 removed the hair-thin strap from his shoulders and placed her rifle in her hand. Peering over the edge of the roof, she spit her cigarette out and watched it tumble into the depths below. When it landed into the crystal clear water of the moat below, she brought up the scope of the rifle and peered down at the woman. Oh my, to be young again, she whispered, allowing a small smile to spread across her lips as she inspected the woman, enjoying the way their bikinis formed and fitted around their every curve. Taking a deep, calming breath, she brought down the rifle, only to have a flashback of nostalgic euphoria a second later, remembering the kind of woman she'd used to be when she was their age. Oh, excuse me, number 2. I'd asked you what's wrong, and then I got caught up in the moment, she murmured, gazing at her number 1, feeling her annoyance begin to simmer at the bottom of her belly. Madam Lilith, I don't want them too close to you. Can I keep them trapped in your conference room? I could turn on the PA system, and then they'd be able to speak to you without their filthy breaths touching you, she heard her number 2 grumble, keeping his eyes firmly locked with hers. They're growing into their true selves, breaking past the templates I've cast them in. Is this on account to tinkering or time? It's so hard to tell. They were all teenagers when their families were slaughtered by bombs. Teenagers when I collected them and made them my own. But even still, they'd already been created. And although I've cast them into a rigid mold, it cracks. And now I can see both deeper beauty and deeper, profound ugliness, she thought, nodding her head at her number 2 before saying, Unfortunately, I must share air with the sheep, for a predator is always at the mercy of their prey, and both are at the mercy of the situation in which they are cast together. After saying that, time felt slower, and her mind felt less cluttered. Mercy of the situation they are both cast in, she thought, as she drank in the sweet, salinized scent of the ocean, enjoying the warm kiss of the sun on her face. Somewhere deep in her bones, she longed to hear the sound of the war horn, the one that used to remind her of her vitality, the one that would cry out a song she titled, With My Landing, I Bring Change. But there was no such horn and hadn't been since the announcement from the United States declaring that they'd want to build a space elevator and that the world should come together in peace to make it happen. Never in her 57 years of life, surrounded by countries who hated everything hers stood for, did she ever expect peace. And not just peace, proclaimed for the eyes of others, but true peace, where Gaza had literally allowed itself to be annexed by the state of Israel. Peace where Lebanon and West Bank had opened their borders, allowing natural materials and technological equipment to flow through unhindered. This was a piece of many people's dreams, but for her it was a nightmare, where she had to fight back the urge to spill more blood to claim precious retribution. I lost myself. It's 9 minutes in. This is a bit of an excerpt from ERTA Book 3, the Prologue. I hope you guys like my reading. That was my first time reading like that, and I don't want to film this again, so I'm simply going to publish this. So again, this is ERTA the complete series is the one I hope you pick up, but this is from the book 3, the prologue. And here is where you can see that kind of tempo change from book 1 and 2. Book 2, you feel the tempo change, but here is definitely where you know you're getting something else other than just that hot steamy read that you don't have to think about the plot line. This is going to make you think about everything. All right, this is Owen Wills. Thank you for your support. Recently, I also hit the top 100 for US and Canada. It's not there now. I hope it goes back. There's a lot of competition out there. If you want, please support me by picking up a copy of ERTA, the complete series. The Amazon link is in the description below. Take care, and thank you again for your support and for listening. Cheers.